Hello, my name is CJ, and welcome to another one of my monthly manga pickup videos. Let's get to the manga. Here are my glorious mangoes for the months of February and March 2017. Once again, guys, student teaching has absolutely decimated my collection, but you know what? Again, I prefer quality over quantity, and there are definitely some quality volumes here. Let's go ahead and get started. First, I have Attack on Titan Lost Girls Volume 2. Let me just say real quick that I have a little bit of bias concerning the first volume of this series because Annie is one of my favorite characters. So naturally, I enjoyed that one more than I did this one. That being said though, it's more than just the character for me. The first volume had Annie going on this really cool detective adventure. This one is more about Mikasa's past and childhood. So the stuff that we learn in this volume is either unsurprising or stuff that we already know from the original series. That being said, though, if you're a fan of Attack on Titan, not just a fan of Mikasa, this one is definitely worth picking up because of its very strange ending. I'm very curious as to what people think of the ending of this volume because I was so confused along the way. I was like, wait, what's going on? Like, even though I knew the story, there were some things that popped up that I just couldn't quite piece together. And again, I'm trying to avoid this for spoilers' sake, but I really want to know what people think of the end of this volume. This one, for me, is definitely worth picking up if you're a fan of Attack on Titan, if only for that strange ending. Next, I have a manga, the first volume of a manga called Cells at Work. This one was recommended by the YouTuber V's World of Manga. Definitely recommend checking her out. Sometimes on Patreon, I'll get enough money to afford an extra manga volume that month, and so she recommended this one, so I went out and picked it up. This is a very interesting manga. It is about red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets, and other cells in the body coming together to fix certain problems in the human body like diseases, allergens, etc. It's very strange. This one is a little bit strange to talk about, especially as a teacher, because this is what I would consider not only to be a fun shonen series, but also a very cool educational manga. Like, this series doesn't shy away from telling you, like, how these cells actually function. Like, there's not just a character called red blood cell, and there's not just a character called white blood cell. Like, they actually do their jobs like they would if they were actual cells. I will say, though, I'm kind of disappointed because I would love to have a volume like this for a junior high classroom, but there's a lot of humor concerning this white blood cell character where like a virus or like some kind of disease or mutated cell will show up and he will just go absolutely ham on them. It is hilarious. Like, it'll be just like a calm scene where he's talking to another character and all of a sudden like a mutated cell will pop up and it'll just turn into like an absolute bloodbath, and it's so funny. It's hard to explain if you haven't seen it or read it, but that sort of humor isn't exactly appropriate for junior high classrooms. I'm almost not even sure about high school classrooms. So again, really, really cool educational manga, but I'm kind of curious about who the audience is actually for. Next up, we have The Heroic Legend of Arslan, written by one of my favorite manga authors of all time, Hiromu Arakawa. She's the lady who wrote Fullmetal Alchemist and also Silver Spoon, the latter of which I really, really need to read. The Heroic Legend of Arslan is a manga adaptation of a Japanese novel by the same name. It is super deep. If you're into like politics and classical stories, this is the manga for you. This volume features the character of Ferengis, and let me just say, hello Ferengis, how you doing? Look at that outfit. Ferengis is dressed very provocatively, which made me a little bit concerned when she first appeared in the manga because this story is very male-centric. Most of the characters are men, but Ferengis ends up being one of the best characters in the series. She is cool-headed. She is the intellectual one of the bunch. She's just all around a very cool character. So, once again, don't judge a book by its cover. I somehow have to keep reminding myself to remember that. Next is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stardust Crusaders Volume 2, featuring one of my favorite characters of the series, Joseph Joestar. I should clarify that my two absolute favorite characters are Joseph and Funny Valentine from Steel Ball Run. That being said, this is a fantastic volume, not just because it features glorious Joseph, but I've just been loving these hardcover volumes of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. These are super high quality. They look amazing on my shelf. I've just been eagerly looking forward to every single one that comes in the mail. They are so pretty. Most people know Stardust Crusaders as being the most popular part of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and even though it has one of my favorite characters in it, I will say that it's definitely not my favorite part. That being said, just picking up these volumes for the sheer quality alone has been so worth it, and it's been a lot of fun rereading this gloriously bizarre manga. I mean, this is the part where it really, really starts becoming bizarre. Like, if you thought parts 1 and 2 were bizarre, this is where it gets super, super weird. And once again, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is an absolute recommendation for me, especially if you're into shonen manga. You will not find a manga like this anywhere else. It's just absolutely, absolutely crazy awesome. Next is Kare Kano. This was recommended to me by a YouTube user called Santi2700. I'm not really sure how to say your name, but thank you for the recommendation. I was able to find this on Amazon for super cheap. I basically paid a penny for it, plus shipping, and you can see, there was definitely a reason for that. This still has library markings on it. It's got like a little sticker on it. Getting all these stickers off is not impossible, but it's very, very hard. So I have heard a lot about this series. I heard it was like, oh my gosh, it's one of those shoujo manga that was published in the 90s that I just never picked up, and I had a bunch of friends who read it back then, and I just never touched it for whatever reason. And let me just say right now, this is a very, very strange story. It starts off with this girl who's super narcissistic. She goes to school and basically puts on this like front of being like the perfect student, the like A+ all-star at sports, clubs, etc. And she goes home and she just like lazes about. It turns out she's actually like super lazy and super selfish. Like, she's a narcissist basically. And it all deals with her falling in love with another kid who's a perfectionist, and it is super strange. Their relationship is oddly abusive. Like, he ends up finding out that this is all an act, that she's basically putting on an act just to be popular, and so he decides to blackmail her and says to her, okay, like, I won't tell anybody your secret, you just have to do all my work for me. And so she begrudgingly accepts this and does it, and like over time as she's doing this, she starts to fall in love with him. And eventually he goes, oh my gosh, like, I had this really tragic childhood where my parents were super abusive and I'm so scared I'm gonna end up like them. And she's like, no, you're not abusive, you're not like them at all, you're great. And I'm like, he's literally blackmailing you. Like, he's emotionally abusing you as we speak. Like, shoujo manga back in the 90s and early 2000s, and even some today, have this like really weird issue of like abusive personalities. And like, people complain about like Beauty and the Beast, but this is like full on like emotional abuse. That being said, it was a really fun read. Still, nevertheless, it was a great time. I loved diving into like sort of like this weird nostalgic 90s strip of manga. Like, this manga has a lot of 90s tropes where like the character will like look at the reader like here and like make a comment. So that was a lot of fun seeing those tropes again. But once again, a very, very strange story. But thank you nevertheless for that awesome recommendation. Next, we have the Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess manga adaptation. This is by Akira Himekawa. She does most, not all, but most of the Legend of Zelda manga adaptations. And let me just say, I think this may be one of her best ones. Like, Twilight Princess is not my favorite Zelda game, but I always really appreciate it for what it tried to do with its story. And unlike some of Himekawa's previous Zelda adaptations, I feel like this one is really not only properly adapting the story, but also adding some really, really cool things to it. I don't want to say exactly what, because I really want people to read this, in particular Zelda fans, just to see what I'm talking about. This one's an absolute recommendation for me. You just gotta trust me on this one. Check out the Twilight Princess manga adaptation. Next, we have volume 11 of My Love Story, and speaking of abusive relationships, this is a perfect relationship. Again, if you're a shoujo fan, or if you're someone who is interested in shoujo but just has never really picked it up for whatever reason, My Love Story is the perfect recommendation. Like, it's just so cute. Unlike most shoujo manga, my love story starts with the relationship already formed. Or, I'm sorry, 3 chapters in, the relationship is now formed. So these two have to learn how to be boyfriend and girlfriend, and it's so endearing and it's so sweet. Like, neither of them are abusive, neither of them are manipulative. It's just a really, really nice story. And yeah, again, absolute recommendation for me. This manga volume is another hysterical volume in the series. I just cannot wait for more. It's so cute. Please pick it up. Next, we have One Piece. Oh, One Piece. Oh my goodness. If I could marry a manga, it would be One Piece. And thank goodness the English translation has finally gone beyond Dressrosa. Again, no offense to Dressrosa, but whew, Dressrosa was painful to get through. It was just so long. So this is the beginning of the Zou arc, which is the mini arc right before Whole Cake Island. And this is where the series really began to take off again. If you're a One Piece fan who stopped in the middle of Dressrosa, you just got bogged down by all of that just nonsense with that arc, please continue, because once you get to Zou, it's just insane. It's so cool, and I don't want to say why, but it's just really, really awesome. Again, huge recommendation. One Piece is amazing. Again, I get if people shy away from that volume count. I mean, it is volume 81 after all. Holy cow. But if you're into long stories, One Piece is definitely a high recommendation for me. Next is One Punch! One Punch is just an amazing manga. I've said it time and time again. This is definitely worth your time. This volume features glorious Metal Bat, and also Metal Bat's sister in this volume. I absolutely love the scene with them together. It's so cute. This volume in particular has one of my favorite side stories in the end of it, so if you're going to pick up any One Punch volume, this may be a place to start, because that story, in my opinion, is almost worth the purchase of this entire volume alone. It is so, so funny, and I don't really want to say why, because LOL spoilers, but should definitely read that side story. Once again, I always would recommend One Punch Man. It's a fantastic series. It's absolutely hysterical. The action is better than you'll see in basically almost any manga. I mean, Murata is just incredible. He's the same guy who drew Ice Shield 21. Of course, this manga is written by one. He's a webcomic artist, but I mean, the manga adaptation, this adaptation is drawn by Murata, and he's just, oh my gosh, he's just so amazing. He is so good with a pen. I mean, it's just hard to explain unless you read it. So definitely check it out if you somehow haven't already. Next is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and this is kind of strange. This isn't a manga volume, but nevertheless, I wanted to talk about this because this is basically what I've been doing with all of my free time, aside from reading manga. Breath of the Wild is, of course, the latest installment of the Legend of Zelda series. I got the Wii U plebeian casual version because I am too poor to afford a Switch. But that being said, I absolutely adore this game. It's really, really good. It's been a lot of fun. It's been keeping me occupied until Persona 5 comes out. That being said, though, this is definitely not my favorite in the series because I played Zelda more for the story than I do for the action-adventure. So there's not that much story in this one, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Like, if you're not really that into, like, Zelda's story, but you're into the gameplay, like, this is going to be probably, like, one of your favorite Zeldas. For me, it was just okay. You know, it was just okay. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. So, if you like Zelda, please pick up this glorious, glorious game. And speaking of gloriousness, I have the Art and Artifacts Legend of Zelda book. This thing is huge. It's hard to explain just how big it is, so I'm just gonna lift it up and show you. Oh gosh, it's huge! Like, seriously, look at how thick that is. Here are my fingers for comparison. Oh my gosh, that is huge. I got this for about $21 because I pre-ordered it, and when it came in the mail, like, I was concerned that I'd somehow ordered a brick because I did not expect it to be this thick. But this is a really cool art volume. It has just a ton of really, really cool, not only art pieces, but concept art as well. I mean, just look at that stuff. That's so cool. Ah! Sorry, I'm just in love with this book. It's really insanely awesome. And it has some really cool interviews with some of the creators in the back. If I can get to that. There we go. Beautiful. The only thing that I am somewhat saddened about with this volume is that the original volumes, the first volume of the series, Hyrule Historia, had a Skyward Sword manga chapter in the back that was drawn by the same lady who did the Twilight Princess adaptation. And this volume doesn't have anything. So I was a little bit miffed about that. But, you know, other than that, it's a really cool volume. Can't complain all that much. If you're a Zelda fan, this may be one to pick up. Just saying. Thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you especially to my Patreon supporters, and thanks to everybody who supports this channel. If you have any recommendations for future monthly manga pickup videos, please post them in the comments below. I really appreciate those recommendations because they encourage me to seek out manga that I might not have otherwise seen. If you also have your own monthly manga pickup video, again, post links to the comments below. I will feature them in the comment section because as a student teacher, I can't always make these videos on a monthly basis, so I really want to support those channels that are consistently making them. Again, guys, thank you so much, and until next time, this is CJ, signing off.